Hi again, everybody. It's Kevin Canessa coming to you from the newsroom of The Observer and TheObserver.com on this, the 29th day of April. And today's broadcast is going to be a little bit different than normal. We're going to turn it over to Tony Mondaro in a moment. One of his dear friends, Paul Haggerty, died over the weekend. Paul was a public servant and a first responder in Lynhurst for many years, and he and Tony were dear friends. And so Tony would like to speak about him a little bit today, and here he is, our dear friend Tony Mondaro. Good afternoon, Tony.
Good afternoon, Kevin, and thank you for the opportunity. And Kevin, I know Paul since the um, early 80s, 1981. We met in his garage in Lyndhurst, New Jersey. He was at the time with the township of Lyndhurst as an EMT and also with the fire department. And I was still a volunteer at the time with the North Arlington Volunteer Emergency Squad, and Paul was heavily into communications. Paul was heavily into helping others, and he helped others in many ways, as well as being a police captain when he retired from Lynhurst Township, and also he was, as you see in some of these pictures, he was also the chief of the Jersey Coastal Emergency Services Unit, which is a local communications team out of the Lyndhurst area that helped people on CB Channel 9 for years. Also, a lot of the weather reports that you would see on TV for the local area, and also in the press and over no weather radio. A lot of those reports came from Paul through me. Paul did a wonderful job of reporting the weather, and he was a storm spotter, not a chaser, but a spotter. He monitored communication systems out west as these storms were coming from west to east over to our area, and we were able to alert the National Weather Service. Now, a lot of the National Weather Service severe thunderstorm warnings and special flood warnings and advisories were because of some of our reports when they're issued for Bergen County and also Hudson County and also Essex County. Paul never knew the word no. Paul always was out to help others, especially in our communications community. If North Arlington had an issue with communications, if Nutley had a communication issue, South Bergentown, such as Rutherford and East Rutherford, had a communications issue. He was the first one that Paul was tried to fix that before going over to their Motorola counterparts, especially if it was off hours and over the weekend. And to say I am completely devastated to hear the news about Paul is a gross understatement. Paul meant a world to me. We were like brothers, and he will be sorely missed, Kevin, for all the wonderful things he did and how he helped our community through all these years. He was truly a superhero without a cape.
It is interesting that you bring up the communications portion of his career because I have to be honest with you, I forgot this, Tony. But just a couple of years ago, the Lynhurst Police Department just redid its entire communications area, put in monitors, there are cameras all over the township. In fact, you can't get in or out of Lynhurst without there being a camera around there. And when it first opened up, I had an opportunity to sit down with younger Paul Haggerty, who reminded me that it was his dad who was involved in the whole planning process for getting the Lynhurst Communication Center up and running, the modern one that they use today. And I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it is one of the greatest setups I have ever seen. It is just tremendous. And it's all coming back to me now and reminding me of that because they have set the standard for communications. And it sounds like in so many ways, you correct me if I'm wrong, Paul Haggerty set the tone for so many people for different aspects of public safety and weather and communications and things of that nature. Tony?
Kevin, you're 1,000% correct. Everything that you see there in the township, from the communication tower to all the police vehicles, the fire vehicles, EMS vehicles, and their emergency management operation is all top notch. And we all have stolen one idea or another from Paul through the years. I had a problem with all of our communications here at the Harrison Weather Center. Paul would be the first guy here to help us out. Paul would be the first guy to pull up in his yellow truck, hand the cable out of the yellow truck, and program a radio or to make sure we were good to go, especially if a frequency changed or what we call a private line change. So it's a separate frequency from the radio frequency, so you can only hear one town, say if numerous towns shared the same frequency.
Right.
Paul was on the forefront of that, making sure that we always had the correct communications. We were having a terrible hum with the North Darlington Police communication system at one time when I worked for the borough. And Paul said, "Hey, Tone, look and have Motorola take a look at A, B, or C." And he hit on either A, B, or C. So,
Wow.
he was certainly a superhero, and he made sure that we were well protected here as far as public safety communications in the area, and also as a storm spotter. Like I said, a spotter, but not a chaser. A chaser is
Right.
very dangerous, but he gave us numerous weather reports, and I put my National Weather Service cooperative weather observer hat on. And from the National Weather Service, both the National Weather Service and Upton, New York, also the regional office out in Bohemia, New York. We thank the Hagerty family and Paul Jr., Nick, and wife Karen for the many years of service they have given to our community through the years. It's incredible, and really, 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 very, very upset about the loss of Paul.
It's even more remarkable too when you think that he has left an indelible legacy, really, because Paul Jr. was just made a captain in Lynhurst a couple of months ago, and I'm sure his dad was there for that, and to see his son become a captain. But that family really does have this just incredible desire to be of service to other people, and it sounds to me like Paul Sr. was really the one who started all that in their family. But the whole Haggerty family too has always been involved in being of service to other people. You know, his brother Brian, of course, was a member of the uh, township council, commissioners, and things of that nature. So, yeah, tell me a little bit about that. Was it just in the was it in the Haggerty blood to be of service to other people?
Well, I believe it goes all the way back to his mom and his father. And, when you think of the Haggerty family, Kevin, there's only one word to really associate it, and that's class. Class right from the get go, uh, always trying to help people, and it was handed down from generation to generation to generation. And I don't want to speak for the township of Lynhurst at this time, but I would like to make a suggestion that something should be named after Paul in the township. You know, I don't know how that would be done on the political level, but he is surely deserving of something being named after Paul Haggerty for all the wonderful things he's done for that township through all the years.
I don't know whether they ever named it, but I'll tell you what would be ideal would be to name that communication center after him, because it really does have his fingerprint almost everywhere in that room in Township Hall. And I don't want to say for sure because I think it's possible maybe they did name it already, but if they haven't, I think that would be a wonderful gesture, Tony, that or something, something somewhere in the town, because somebody like that needs to be remembered forever. He truly does.
Now, Kevin, now you've never physically been here to the weather center yet. And I'm sure you'll be here someday to take a look at our operation. When you take a look behind me of all the communications, that is Paul Haggerty. That is Paul. What you see, Paul helped put this place together after Superstorm or Hurricane Sandy in the area, and he said, "Hey, Tone, why don't we take a look at this, that, or the other?" And we have a very nice setup here at the Weather Center. Paul was just here last year, And I joked with him just not too long ago. I said, Paul, every time you come here, last time he came here, a thunderstorm literally developed over the weather center. And it was the first time in years we actually had hail. We had hail over the weather center. So I said, Paul, every time you come here, you bring severe weather with you. So we always joked about that, and a lot of he was always somebody who always had a good ear. Say if you had an issue, whether operationally with public safety or operationally with the weather, operationally with communications, he was the go-to guy. He was the go-to guy. He was the go-to guy when it came to any type of technical situation that needed to be solved. He knew the FCC rules and regulations by the back of his hand. All of his radio communication stuff was properly licensed and updated. He helped me with my license. Now what do I do? I'm not really versed in licensing. I'm gonna have to try to help see other people within the Jersey Coastal Emergency Communications System. And what that is, Kevin, is a group of people on amateur radio, CB Channel 9, and GMRS radio systems that assist other people. Believe it or not, there are some CBers still out there on the New Jersey Turnpike. They'll either go on Channel 9 or 19 with a radio call. It's kind of less and less now because there's cell phones now out there. But
Right.
still, we used to monitor those bands for emergency calls and then in turn notify the public safety department, whether it be on the New Jersey Turnpike, whether it be on the Garden State Parkway or one of the state roads.
That is remarkable. Now, let me ask you this question, and I don't want to put you on the spot. If you don't know the answer, I apologize. But how did he learn about all this stuff? Do you know? Did he take courses? Did he teach himself? It's remarkable how much knowledge he had.
We went he went to we because we went to a lot of weather classes together. I can still
Sure.
remember us going down to the Middlesex Fire Academy learning a lot of the stuff when the weather service had their official classes. But radio communications, a lot of it was self-taught, and he had a lot of the radio companies help him as well. People like Regional Communications out of Paramus, J&H Radio out of Belleville. These companies all partnered with Paul, and also seeked Paul's assistance on some of the issues they were having because he was self-taught on a lot of stuff. Paul was magnificent in what he done.
Take a look at this picture that I have up on the screen right now. You're in it with Paul and Karen, and I'm not sure who the other two people are in the photo, but tell me if you remember what this day was all about.
It sure was. This was the 50th anniversary of Jersey Coastal Emergency Services. It was held just a couple of years ago. And from left to right on the screen, you have Karen, Paul's wife. You have Paul, myself. It's Kenny Neglos. He's the vice chairman and also assistant chief of Jersey Coastal Emergency Services, and his lovely wife Ann. And I believe everyone in that picture is either a certified weather spotter or amateur radio operator. So Paul had us doing everything.
Wow. Absolutely remarkable. If you're just joining us, Tony Mondaro is here with us today on the Observer Live, and he is speaking of his friend Paul Haggerty, who died over the weekend, this past weekend. He will be laid to rest later this week. His wake is at the Stellato Funeral Home. If you want to find out more about him, you can check out the Stellato Funeral Home website and read his obituary there. Um, Person like Paul, how do you replace him, or can you replace him?
I think it's very hard, Kevin, to replace somebody like that. You'll have other people step up where Paul, positions. But for us old timers out there, it's very hard to replace our old timers. Let's go around the horn for a second. The
Sure.
town, Lou Lanzaro, Harrison Fire Chief. Very hard to replace people like Lou. He had other fire chiefs, but were as good as Lou. Let's take Kearny. Let's take George King, Kearny Police Chief. You'll have other police chiefs, but not like George King. Okay. Let's take John Hearn, Borough of North Arlington Police Chief. Yeah, there was other police chiefs, but nothing like John Hearn. Not going to happen. And Lynhurst, same thing. You're going to have, replacements for Paul Haggerty, the captain, which now his son's the captain. But Paul is going to try very hard to live up to his father's captaincy when he was Paul was senior was the captain of Lynhurst, and then Rogers out of Nutley, wonderful, wonderful police officer there. He did wonderful work. As you can see, he was replaced, but not going to be any good, any better than I forget what his first name is, Mr. Rogers over in
Stephen.
Steve Rogers. Yeah, a wonderful guy. I know I had an issue that I need to talk to him about on the emergency medical end of things when I was the chief over at North Arlington EMS. And not only was he really, really a great guy when he was working for Nutley Police, but a very giving guy, and always lent an ear, of any problem. So the old timers are very hard to replace.
Truly remarkable, truly remarkable. And you know, I don't know how we segue into talking about the weather today, but this is a beautiful day today, and a day that I'm sure Paul Haggerty would have loved as it's getting warmer. And man, I tell you, I wish I had known him. I wish I had, because you are describing somebody to me who sounds very heroic. He really, like, he was a very special man, and I'm so glad. I'm so glad you are talking about him today. And I know his son Paul will certainly be appreciative of it, Tony.
Oh, absolutely, and also his brother Brian too. Brian's another superstar, and he does something like we do for Lyndhurst Township.
Yep.
I believe he has a YouTube channel that he does some stuff, and Brian's very knowledgeable too on the local news in the Lyndhurst area. But second, coming over to the weather, and Paul would love a day like today, a nice sunny day with a high near 80 degrees, and he'd be trying to be playing another repeater, putting up another radio repeater on a day like this, or doing some maintenance outside. A great day to be outside. Tonight, Kevin, maybe perhaps a shower, overnight low temperatures cooling back down to the low 60s. And tomorrow on Wednesday, a mix of sun and clouds. High temperatures on Wednesday, a little cooler than today. Probably going to be another 10 degrees, cooler, low 70s. Day of the week, it's got to be Thursday, sunny, 70 degrees. And then we go back down the weather hill on Friday as we introduce clouds, fist fighting with the sun again. High temperatures, mid 70s. Perhaps a shower, especially late in the day and at night. Saturday, Kevin, another washout. And hey, don't go blaming the weather, guys. I only report it. I don't bring it. If I brought the weather every day, it would be like San Diego.
Yep.
Low 70s, low humidity and sunny, and overnight low temperatures. I think they're in the 50s and 60s, and that would be my weather. And maybe throw in a couple rainstorms here and there so we don't have a drought. For those who are monitoring the drought, we still are in drought conditions here in northern New Jersey. The DEP tells us that down in Trenton. The normal rainfall for our area is 4.20 inches, and so far in our gauges out in the back here at the Weather Center, 3.77 inches of rainfall for the month so far. And for all of our green thumb gardeners, I is one. Soil temperature doing 60 degrees, and I finally got the seed heads under control in my grass. Cut it low, scalped it, and now I'm praying that it can kill it. I don't think so. It's starting to come back up again. So a lot going here at the Harrison Weather Center. And Kevin, again, thanks to you and the crew there back at the Observer for giving us time to talk about Paul. And once again, I'm sure we share our condolences along with the Observer to his family, his wife Karen, and his sons Paul and Nick.
Tony, I cannot thank you enough for doing this, and I'll be forever grateful to you for that. And as I am each and every week when you join me here on the air, thank you, my friend.
Thank you, Kevin, and have a great day.
Tony, stand by for a second. We're going to take a short break right here, and when we come back, we will talk about the rest of the news. You are watching The Observer Live right here on theobserver.com and YouTube. Don't go away. Be right back. Subscribing to The Observer on YouTube couldn't be easier, and we're going to show you exactly how to do that. First, navigate to www.youtube.com/TheObserverNJ. Once you get there, all you need to do is hit the subscribe button. Next to the subscribe button, click the down arrow and then all. And that's it. You're subscribed, and now anytime The Observer is live, you will be notified.
Sometimes we know what's next.
Next.
Other times, it's impossible to know what's next. Don't be caught standing by the next time someone's heart stops.
Call 911.
Call 911.
Call 911.
Knowing CPR takes you from bystander to lifesaver. Join the Nation of Lifesavers by learning CPR at heart.org/nation today and be the next lifesaver.
It is 56 minutes past the hour. Kevin Canessa back with you here on The Observer Live, and I want to thank you all for taking the time to watch my interview with Tony Mondaro. We had to record it earlier today because Tony has a class that he has to take today, and he's also working at Washington Middle School in Harrison these days. And I tell you what, I knew Paul Haggerty through our broadcasts, and I know his son Paul very, very well, who he, of course, is a captain in Lynhurst, and it's such a great loss for the Lynhurst community. So I really thank Tony for taking the time to reflect on his friend, and all of our thoughts here at The Observer are with the entire Hagerty family during this awful time. It really can't be just absolutely awful time, but the funeral is coming up on Thursday at the Stellato Funeral Home. A few things that I need to get to before we get to the news today. The first thing is this: the Grace United Methodist Church is having its annual dinner and auction on May 2nd. The dinner starts at 5:30, goes to 6:45, and then the auction begins at 7 p.m. If you don't have any plans for May the 2nd, which of course is this week, head on over and support a very good cause. It's their annual fundraiser, and I know Lori Bratto works very, very hard putting this together with, I'm sure, her committee, and that's coming up on the 2nd of May this weekend. So if you're not doing anything, head on over there and enjoy a great dinner. The food is always good, and you'll have a chance to win some great prizes, I'm sure, as well. Now, yesterday in Lynhurst, New Jersey Transit cut the ribbon. They are finally ready to open up the new train station in Lynhurst. And what was pretty interesting is that 4 years ago, almost to the day, 4 years ago, on April 30th, 2021, the New Jersey Transit folks and state people broke ground. And the late Congressman Bill Pescarell, who had a big to-do with getting the train station there, was on hand for it. God rest his soul. And now, 4 years later, they're just about ready to open up this new train station. It's completely ADA accessible, which is not the case at the Kingsland station over on Ridge Road. Now, you have to remember that that station is going to close. There are some people who are very, very disappointed in that, especially people who have homes that are nearby. But the reality is the new train station isn't all that far away, really. It's pretty close. But there are still a lot of people who are very upset with the fact that Kingsland isn't being renovated and they're not going to keep it open after this new station opens up. But it really is a very beautiful new train station. And I had a chance to go over there yesterday to see the ribbon cutting. Chris Calori, the executive director of New Jersey Transit, was on hand, as well as a bunch of politicians as well. And Mayor Robert Giangiarusso, the mayor of Lynhurst, spoke, and here's what he had to say yesterday at this ribbon cutting. Now, mind you, there is a generator going off in the background, so that may get in the way of hearing everything, but we'll do our best to let you hear what he had to say yesterday. Take a listen.
First of all, I just want to thank New Jersey Transit just for allowing Lynhurst to be one of the best stations, not only in the state, but in the country. It's a beautiful station overlooking a beautiful park. So as we New Jersey Director Paul Haggerty, thank you again, Barbara, for the help you gave us. And of course, Senator Paul Sarlo, very instrumental in getting this taken off the ground. New Jersey SEA Commissioner former Lynhurst Mayor Lou Scalato, Assemblyman Calibers, Bergen County Commissioner Chairman Mary Amoroso, Bergen County Commissioner Steve Tonelli, Tom Sullivan, Tracy Zer, Rafael Marte, and Commissioner Ortiz. I want to extend my sincere support for our commissioners, John Matillo, Lou DeMarco, Rich Jarvis, and Karen Hagerty, who could not attend today. And all the Bergen County distinguished guests who are here today. It is great pride that we celebrate the ribbon cutting event of the new Lynhurst station, a project that reflects not only our commitment to progress, but also our dedication to accessibility and community improvement. For over a century, the original station has been a cornerstone of this opening, its doors in 1913 and serving a vital transportation hub for generations. However, transit hubs in Bergen County. This modern facility is not only reflects our commitment to smart growth and infrastructure development, but also promises to enhance the quality of life for our residents. By improving accessibility and connectivity, we are laying the foundation for a more prosperous and connected Lynhurst. This is more than a transportation upgrade. It marks a big step for Lynhurst forward. It shows that progress will make life better for our residents and build a stronger community. Today, we stand before a state-of-the-art facility that embodies innovation and accessibility. This new station is equipped with a 460-foot long, high-level composite platform designed for modern lightning canopies. Every aspect of this facility has been crafted with care and purpose. And most importantly, this station is fully ADA accessible. And let's not forget the accomplishments made by the $30.9 million for funding provided by the Federal Transit Administration and also the significant efforts of Senator Paul Sarlo. We are especially thrilled to share that Lynhurst station is scheduled was handled with care and precision. Thank you everyone who made this possible. Thank you all for attending and God bless you all.
That was Mayor Robert Giangiarusso, the mayor of Lynhurst. Did you guys have any issues seeing the video? I was having trouble with this video. I recorded it in 4K, which I think is a mistake when you're doing a 1080p broadcast, and I don't know if you got a chance to see the whole thing, but it kept freezing up on me. That's never happened before. So if there was some choppiness to that video, I apologize. It may have gone out completely. I don't know, but sometimes that happens. I'm not going to do any 4K videos anymore, that's for sure. It's just a little too much. But you know, the thing that I never knew is that there are each week there are 400 trips in each direction whether it's going into Manhattan or coming from Manhattan at the Lynhurst station. So it's a pretty busy train station. And when you consider all the building that's going up over there, there is a lot of activity, and it's going to be very well used, that station. And for 4 years, they've been working very hard to get it up, and I believe it will open on the 8th of June. That is the first day the station will be in operation. This was sort of like a light opening. I'm not quite sure why they decided to do it now instead of waiting until that day, but I guess they'll get everything. They got everything out of the way, and then once everything gets started on the 8th of June, you'll be able to take the train into Hoboken, Midtown Manhattan. I forget exactly, but I think it stops off at Secaucus too, at the Secaucus Junction. So, well done by everybody yesterday for sure, and congratulations to Mayor Ginger Russo. I know he's very, very happy to have this train station up and running indeed. Now, this week's front page is very, very interesting. We got word over the weekend, I guess it was Friday, that the Attorney General of the state of New Jersey, Matt Platkin, was suing 10 of the largest landlords in the state of New Jersey. And the reason that they are being sued is because there was apparently a website which deals with real estate that unfortunately was inflating artificially the rents that were being charged in these 10 landlords' properties. One of those properties is Russo Development, which I think most of you know are the owners and proprietors and developers of the Vermella properties that you see in Kearny. They're also in Harrison, Lynhurst, and in Belleville. And what the state attorney general is accusing these landlords of doing is using this particular website to drive up the prices for rentals on their properties. And I think anybody who lives in this area knows that over the last couple of years, rents have absolutely ballooned to a point where it is almost unaffordable to live in a lot of the towns that we cover here at the Observer. And when I was doing my research over the weekend, I went back to the classified section of our newspaper for the last week in April of 2015, exactly 10 years ago. And what I found was absolutely staggering if you do a comparison to the rents of 2015 to 2025. Now, I know 10 years is a lot of time, but just to give you an example, one bedroom apartment in Kearny in 2015 was going for about $1,000 a month, and now the average is about $1,900, $2,000, or in some cases even more. When you get into the 2 and 3 bedroom range, these prices have doubled in just 10 years. And even though the Attorney General did not say with certainty that because some of the rentals have gone up in some of the properties that he is suing, I can't help but think that that has had a cause and effect on rentals in general, because you look at it, you see, he's getting $3,000 for a 2-bedroom apartment in Kearny here. Well, we might as well raise our rents too and get a comparable rent. And that's what is basically happening. Now, those rents, we are now finding out, allegedly, we'll keep that at that because there's still a lot to be said. We're just at the beginning stage of this. A lot of these rents were artificially higher than they should have been. So when you think about that, if there's validity to this, and why wouldn't there be if the state attorney general is doing this? You've got to a point where now you have several towns in this area and in all of North Jersey where people are moving away because they can't afford a simple apartment, let alone to buy a house. Forget about that. That's another story in and of itself. But these rentals are so out of control that people are having difficulty living here. People who have lived here for their entire lives who have rented can't even afford some of the rents. They're so bad. And so that's where it stands right now. And what will happen is, now you got to remember, this is not a criminal case. This is a civil case. And so none of the landlords face any prison time or anything of that nature. However, if it goes the way the Attorney General wants it to go, and I hate to say it, but I kind of hope this is exactly what happens, those landlords are going to have to pay back what they owe. What they should have been charging versus what they were charging, and that difference has to go back, and people will be made whole for all the extra money that they had to spend to get these apartments. Now, that won't affect the others who have raised their rents as well, because, as you said, we see double the pricing for some apartments that just 10 years ago were going for significantly less. But at least in this case, if they're found liable for what they're accused of doing, they will be required to have to pay back a lot of this money. And I think this will get dragged out for a long period of time. But when you see the Attorney General calling them cartel landlords, that's got to tell you something. That's a very serious word to use, cartel. It is extremely serious. That it was basically operating in the same guise as a regular cartel. And that's very disappointing, because they have been around, at least in the case of Ed Russo, he's been in Kearny for a long time now, 10 years at least. And it's a shame that this website was allowed to operate the way it was, and the algorithms that they used were deceptive, if true. It's bad enough and expensive enough to live around here, but to know that it's possible that these rents were even higher because of a computer program, and that these landlords all knew about it. They knew about it, and they colluded with each other and said, go ahead and do it. That is so utterly, utterly disgusting and disappointing. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens in the coming months, and I would probably say in this case years, because the truth of the matter is this is going to be drawn out for a while. But I say good job by the Attorney General for taking action here, and we will certainly follow that for as much as we can as it progresses and moves along. Just absolutely amazing. Maria Cabral is in the chat room and saying we need rent control, and Maria, I couldn't agree more. I could not agree more. And the one thing I think is very, very vital to point out here, before anybody points any fingers, in Kearny, Mayor Carol Jean Doyle; in Harrison, Mayor James Fife; in Belleville, Mayor Mike Melham; and in Lynhurst, Mayor Robert Jan Russo, had absolutely nothing to do with this. They had absolutely nothing to do with this, because there are going to be people who say, well, then why didn't the governing bodies or the CEOs of the towns do something about this, when the reality is this was completely out of their hands. And it's a shame, because it could affect them. It could affect them at election time. And, Mayor Jan Russo is up for re-election. Mayor Doyle is up for re-election this year. Mayor Fife could be up for re-election next year, and the same in Belleville. It's just a shame, but it's important to note that in every single one of these cases, it was not the governing bodies that set these prices. It was the landlords, not the governing body. So I don't want anybody to go out there and say this is the fault of the mayor or mayors, because it's just not fair to do that. And as Maria said in the chat room, rent control, I think, is needed. It may be needed at this point in time. There are certain towns that have it. Kearny is not one of them, but it's getting to the point where it's so out of control that I would hate to see this continue. I really would. And people need help. People need help. As we continue along, I want to welcome in everybody who is watching us today. But I just saw Chris Musto is here today. Chris is running for State Assembly, and he is retired from the Department of Homeland Security. Chris, good to see you, and indeed, God bless Paul, and may he rest in peace. And Maria, thank you for your comments. I really appreciate you jumping in on that, because this is a very important topic that has not been really talked about enough over the last couple of months, but I think we're going to be hearing a lot more about it in the coming weeks, months, and years. Now, before I get to my final item, I did want to bring this up because Cardinal Tobin is in Rome right now, and he is preparing for the conclave. And before he left for Rome last week, he celebrated a Mass at the Cathedral Basilica of the Sacred Heart in honor of the late Pope Francis. And I have to be honest with you, folks. If you have been watching the news, or if you have been watching different segments and reports about the conclave, which is coming up, and the potential choice for the new Holy Father, there are a lot of people who are discussing having Cardinal Tobin become the next pope. Now, everybody always says an American is never going to become pope, but nobody ever thought for a second a Jesuit would become the pope either. And Pope Francis, of course, did indeed become the pope, and I don't think it was beyond anybody's imagination to think that there would ever be a Jesuit pope. And it happened. And when you think about the fact that 75% of the cardinals who were voting were appointed by Pope Francis, and that many people have compared Cardinal Tobin to Pope Francis, I don't think it's all that far of a stretch to suggest that perhaps he would be considered as the next Holy Father. And how incredible would that be? Our cardinal becoming the next pope. Crazier things have happened. And God knows what's going to happen. They always say if you walk in as the Pope, you come out a cardinal. And I don't think for any reason, I don't think for any second that Cardinal Tobin is over in Rome thinking, I want to be the next Pope. I don't think anybody in their right mind would ever want to do that. But the reality is, a lot of the pundits are talking about this. And wouldn't that be something if our cardinal became the Pope? I'll tell you what. And I have never met Cardinal Tobin in person. However, everything that I know about him tells me he is like the American version of Pope Francis. And wouldn't that be something if, when we get to the conclave next week and the votes come out, they say Cardinalem Tobin, because I think they would probably put a num on the end, Cardinalem Josephum Tobinum. Stranger things have happened. Don't say I'm crazy, because you never know what might indeed happen. But we certainly wish our best to Cardinal Tobin as he is over there right now and preparing for the conclave that begins next week. And I'll tell you what, I wouldn't mind seeing it. Now, this is something I have to talk to you about because it was getting bantered about yesterday on social media to the point where it is getting out of absolute control. And I want to try to be as concise and as kind as possible when I talk about this. But the person who's in the center of that picture is Renado Dilva, who was a councilman in Kearny from the month of November 2023 until November 2024. But he has sure had a lot to say on social media in the last couple of months. And none of it is nice, which is fine. Everybody has a right to their opinion. Thank God we have the First Amendment that allows us the right to free speech and allows us to say the things that we want to say. But what I've been reading has been some of the greatest bull-dinky nonsense I have ever read in all the years that I've been here at this newspaper, which is going back to which dates back to 2006. So we're going on 19 years this year. And every opportunity he gets, he seems to slam this administration. But I don't understand it, because I want to bring you back to something here. Number one, and most importantly, you will all recall that he was indeed a member of the town council for a year. Now, granted, he was never elected. He was appointed by a faction of members of the council to the governing body in 2023. In June of 2024, he lost the primary to Fred Esteves. And then in November of 2024, he was out when Fred took over because he won the general election that year. But this guy had 1 full year where he sat on that town council and on that governing body. And when he had the opportunity to do something of value, and you know what he did? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. In fact, if my memory serves me correctly, the only time he proposed any resolutions was in January of 2024 when the governing body reorganized, and he was offering alternate resolutions to people who the mayor wanted to appoint to committees, to boards, and things of that nature. That was the only time he offered resolutions. And you know why I did it? Because he wanted to put people he liked on those boards instead of people who the mayor decided she wanted to put on those boards. But in an entire year, he did not introduce another resolution or an ordinance or anything of that nature that affected any kind of change in this town. Now all of a sudden he's out there on a regular basis, critical of everybody, when he had a vote to make and effect change in this town. So you know what he's doing now? He's being disagreeable to be disagreeable. That is utterly dangerous. That is utterly dangerous. Because he is getting away up to now with being nothing but critical of people with no factual basis. And now I'm reading here in the chat room that he's on the Republican County Committee ballot. That's interesting. That's interesting. Very interesting. So in a full year, he could have done all these great things. He wanted to, this was great, when he suggested that we have an arts program in the town of Kearny. Remember that? Except the thing is, we have Watco, and we've had Watco for many, many years, and he suggested that we needed something like that. That was brilliant. And so the reason I'm bringing this up is because you're going to probably see it because you read social media. I don't, but I was forced into reading this because I heard it was so out of control. And it's just insane. It is just insane that somebody who has had an opportunity to effect change squandered that opportunity and now has grown a set like you have never seen before in your life. And he keeps saying these terrible things about the governing body right now based on, guess what? His opinion. People have the right to their opinions. They do not have the right to their own facts. And when you start ripping people to shreds, you better have a good reason to do it. There's nothing to back it up. There never has been. There never will be. Because that's how he operates. And, of course, I wouldn't be completely surprised if he decided that he was going to run for mayor as a non-affiliated candidate, which would be kind of funny when you think about it, because back in 2014 he ran for Board of Education, lost. In 2023 or 2024 he ran for Kearny Council and lost. Give him something else to run for and lose. And some of these things are just so outlandish, it's not even funny. And it's unfortunate there are people out there who read this stuff and think, wow, is that really happening? And I'm here to tell you today it's not. It's not. So be careful what you read out there, folks. Be careful what you read out there, because not everything is true. It may sound fancy because people use $3 words. Remember, he has a master's degree. I don't. So he once told me that makes him automatically smarter than I am, which is a bunch of bull, truthfully. But just because you sound smart, just because you use fancy words, and just because you say things that sound cool, does not give it credence necessarily. When the words that are actually coming out are nothing short of manure. And that's exactly what is happening here. So, you've been warned. Keep your eyes out. And don't fall for the nonsense. This picture you see here was taken some time ago. It's interesting to see who's in the picture, though. It's Renado, that's his nameplate. But he's standing next to a judge, a former councilman, 2 sitting council members, and a former Board of Education member. I don't know if it's just me, but I was always told that if you're a judge, you're not supposed to be involved in any kind of political activity. That certainly looks political to me. I don't know. Maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm misreading it, but I don't get it. I don't get it. It is 25 minutes past the hour. Kevin Canessa here with you on the Observer Live. Believe it or not, that's it. We've been on the air for almost an hour today. It's one of our longest broadcasts. There's a couple of things in the chat room, though, before I sign off that I want to get to here. Alexis says she agrees, Kevin, in this, De Silva. I asked him on Facebook, what did he do in the previous administrations, attend meetings, offer constructive solutions. He's doing this because he lost the election to Councilman Estes. There's more to this. There's so much smoke and mirrors from potential candidates, but no substance to their quote-unquote projects. Yeah, exactly. It's something when you say something about what people are doing wrong, but never offer a damn alternative. What would you do? What did you offer when you were sitting there? Nothing. Nothing. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me today. We will be back 1 week from today, or Friday, if it's merited. And again, I want to thank Tony Mondaro for his beautiful reflection on Paul Haggerty. Enjoy what remains of this day, everyone. It's a pretty nice day out there. What is it right now? 80 degrees right now, so it's a very summer-like day out there. But remember, don't believe everything you read, because most of the time, it's not real. From the newsroom of The Observer and TheObserver.com, Kevin Canessa signing off for now. We hope to see you back here again very, very soon. Take care, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesdays. Bye-bye.